looking at the moment as well?
Through you, Madam Chair. It is part of a consenting process. So when a consent has been issued, then they will be revalued, and then we will pick up that extra UAGC.
What about, yeah, okay, but you know, I know people that go to open homes and just specifically to see what the layout is, how the property has changed since it was originally built, and they do report back to me sometimes that, you know, it's a bit suspicious as to what's happening there. And I do think that you've only got to look at the number of cars that are parked outside properties to give you a good indicator that there's more than the normal number of people living at that address. And, you know, when we're, you know, I know our uniform annual general charge is very low, which doesn't help. But no, I'm serious about this, Madam Chair.
I know
we tried, George.
There was a man, Tom Wong Cam, who was the treasurer at North Shore City Council, and he did a remarkable job in following these up, pursued them with vigour, and got a lot of extra rates in as a result of that. So, you know, is this council just kind of let that go?
Through you, Madam Chair. I knew Tom very well, and
yeah, he did a good job.
Yes, he did. And it's not just the UAGC that we pick up, it's the increase in the valuation, because if there's 2 units, then it's worth more money. So, yeah, it's not just the UAGC that we would pick up. If there are unauthorised works, then it's a bigger problem than just rates. We'd need to think about that in a wider context, I think.
Okay, so are we in the future?
Yes, we are.
Oh, we are?
Well, the Chief Financial Officer just told me that we would, probably
Okay,
just for North
because
Shore.
I what about homestays? Where do they fit in this?
So, through you, Madam Chair, if a property has got a separate portion that's able to be identified to a portion off for a business purpose, for a commercial purpose, then we will do that. If it doesn't, then it is rated as residential.
Well, we're going to get some feedback in the future as to how the programs, what results are being achieved from this program. Yeah.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, we're going to report every quarter. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? It's been moved and seconded. I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all the work. Excellent. Item number 12. Andrew. Oh, hi. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just to simplify the subsidiary structure of ACIL, and it's all in the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. It's just tidying up something that was there as an anomaly. I'll move it. If I got a seconder, thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Clow, would you like to move it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Nope.
Good.
No? All good? All right. I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Goodness. Councillors, while I remember, at 12 o'clock, depending on where we are, if we're still at the meeting, I propose to stop and we're going downstairs to the APO. They want to show us something, and then we'll have lunch. But the way we're going, we might be finished. So, here we are, Auckland Council Performance Reports. Oh, it's up to Brenda. Brenda, because you weren't here for the, are you going to be here for the confidential item? Okay, all right, we'll hear from you then. Okay, who's this one? Kevin, right. Oh, Nigel, hi.
Okay, thank you, Chair and Councillors. What we've got in front of you is a fairly standard quarterly report, so it's just an update on how things are going. We'll run through as format you've seen before, and then hopefully if there's, can move on to any questions you may have. So first up, a bit of introduction just to give a context. These are unaudited results. They are for the third quarter now. And key is this is for the council parent. So this month the CCO is reporting through CCO Governance Committee, and next month the whole package will be brought together, and so the group results will be tabled. The content report is outlined there, very similar to what you've seen, emphasising first, what we're actually achieving as we have a purpose to exist, and then moving through how we're measuring performance against those, ultimately to what the financials are, because the financials are to achieve those outcomes. And just pointing out, as we usually do, there are various appendices which just delve into a bit more detail, any areas of interest that have been brought up in the past, in relation to treasury, economics, customer service, and other areas. Starting with the growth, just to emphasise the point that is continuing. So what you see there is a couple of key graphs showing both the second one on the context of the building consents coming through, the first one on the notion of net migration, just showing the trend over time. That actually shows 10 years there, but as you can see quite obviously over those last couple of years the growth has increased drastically, and that's a net migration into the Auckland area. LTP performance measures. We have a series of measures, and if you remember from the first quarter's reports, there was a significant reduction in the number of these from previous years as part of the LTP process. What we have here is 57% of them are reported in this quarter. We do still have a fairly large percentage. There's 31% are part of an annual survey, and the remaining 12% or so are actually parts of are only collected on an annual basis. So yeah, we are trying to move towards a more regular reporting basis for some of those measures. We have had an internal audit review process undertaken to examine some of those areas, the measures that we are taking. So what it's fundamentally looking at is actually the methodology and the quality, the robustness of the process to collect information on those. So what's come out is it's substantially complete now, and there's been no significant unresolved issues identified. There's been a few little areas where we can actually tighten up the process, but nothing of concern. As far as the actual results on those performance measures, what you see there is 68% are in the green, so are fully achieving what we expected. We do have the red, the 25%, which haven't been achieved, and then the 7% is improvement, but not quite there yet. And what you'll see on that graph there is just we've extrapolated out to show some of the reds and greens, just examples of those measures. There's more detail within the report itself, but there are a few indicative measures there as to where we have and haven't achieved against those. What it does do is also give you a sense of scale as to, in most cases, it's not far off the reds. And what you'll see within the report in more detail is where the trend is improving over time, and generally that is the case. Capital expenditure, so the large infrastructure build obviously we're doing, as well as other aspects of asset build or buy. Yeah, $281 million, so around about 51% completed at the third quarter. So that gives a sense, an obvious signal that we're not going to achieve the full year budget of $548 million. There usually is a pickup in the second half of the year and in the last quarter as well. So we are anticipating it will pick up, but not to the full extent. Current outlook is suggesting $500 million of the $548 million. With in the report it outlines some of the obvious reasons as well it's occurred, some of the community areas and also some of the local boards, as well as corporate property, where there's some valid reasons as to why they haven't been achieved yet. What that does mean, though, obviously, is with less capital expenditure, is we actually have raised less debt. So at this point, we're looking at $6.8 billion for the parent. The forecast in the LTP for the end of this financial year is $7.1 billion. We anticipate will be in line, maybe slightly below. Order of magnitude maybe $100 million or so, reflecting the level of capital expenditure that we're down by. As far as the actual financial performance, so looking more at the operational results now. Yeah, look, there's a few numbers on that little table there. The key one there is net operating surplus / deficit. What that is showing, if you ignore more of the accounting book entries, that's the true operational results of the entity. And what you'll see there is $401 million surplus versus where at this point we anticipated $398 million. So within $3 million, slightly improved at this point. The reason the bottom line has a large deficit showing at this point is it's the fair value calculations we do on our derivatives, the treasury. We have an accounting entry we need to make. Nothing that's actually going to eventuate unless the trends continue as they have for a long period. But if we have to mark it to today, if we sold all those, then technically there would be a large loss to make. But there's no way we're looking at doing that. We hold those derivatives for the very reason we want to manage the risk going forward over a longer period. So as I say, the key line is the $401 million result, which is favourable, slightly above where we anticipated being at this time. Basically, things are in line as far as operational results go. So summarising all of that reasonably quickly, no areas of material concern have arisen from that process. Performance measures largely on track. Some areas we are working to improve, and some good results come through the internal audit process. Nothing of concern, but some good indicators as to how we can just tighten the processes up. Slightly better than we anticipated, operational budget by $3 million. Capital investments, 281, anticipating 500 million out of the 548 million we completed at the end of the year. So we will be down a bit on our capital program. That then translates to debt being in line or slightly lower than anticipated. So it's a very quick run through of the results. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, Kathy?
I've got two questions. The first one's for Nigel. It's about the inorganic, the response to the inorganic collection and the complexity of the calls. I'm sure other councillors dealt with it. I had two that just took so much time, so many phone calls. So I understand in March you had probably the worst call response rate ever.
Yes.
Can you just talk about that and how you dealt with it?
Oh, thank you, Madam. Through the chair. It actually is equated. I got some numbers this morning. 14% workload increase right across the business because of the complexity, and it's been not just a volume-driven challenge for us, but as you say, a complexity of the calls. We did. Through the development of the processes for waste, anticipated a 70% shift to digital channels. We were hoping to see that decrease the workload across service centres and contact centres, but we got an uptake of about 40%, which was not anywhere near what we were hoping, and market information said that we were likely to get with something like this. So. We're throwing as much resource as we can at it. It's also been at a time when we're training people for Nucor over the last month and this month included May, we've got about 6,000 hours of training to get through across my department alone, and you could probably triple that for the organisation for the amount of training that we have to get people through to get people trained up for Nucor. So that's compounded the problem as well. So.
Can I just make a comment? If there was that many problems, it meant that our messaging wasn't that great, because what I heard was that people didn't know what not to put out, so they were putting out stuff that was being left, then complaining that the contractor hadn't picked it up. That was one. So through the chair, are we reviewing the messaging around inorganic to get it more accurate and so that he doesn't have to pick up the slack?
Well, I think the team
Yes,
are working very hard on it, because I've been working with Terrell and
Yes,
John
and we
Perry
are
on this.
working very hard to do the learning, to take the learnings from this. And because it is a phased implementation right across the whole waste minimisation program, we're definitely taking the learnings we have from the first early phases. And this is new for us. It is quite complex, and it's a big change because the other challenge we've got is it's been so different for so long across the region. It will simplify it long term, but it is that change process that we're working through.
Just before I ask my second question, I'm also interested in that uptake. I think, everybody thinks we're going to be a paperless society tomorrow, and it ain't going to happen like that. So that's an interesting statistic. So there's 40% uptake when 70% was predicted. Who's explaining that?
Well, I think it is has a lot to do with the different demographics. I think it's different in different regions. We definitely know that. One of the challenges we have is Auckland is very well connected, but the difference that we have in some of the regions, there are groups in the community that have access at home, but a lot of people, the only access they have to the internet is something like this. So we'll be looking at that and looking at better, more responsive to mobile devices, so people can use those devices more easily for something like this.
Okay, good to hear. My second question, and Kevin, you may or may not be able to answer it, but I'm absolutely delighted that the Oakley Creek Stormwater Project is progressing, and you mentioned it in your report. For the councillors who don't know, are you able just to talk about, the environmental impacts are just enormous, but there's also huge social benefits. Are you able to tell the councillors about that? Because if you're not on the Tenders and Procurement Committee, you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, no, I've seen the presentation myself, but obviously I couldn't give you much detail on that one. of the impacts coming through, no, sorry, couldn't give any detail.
Maybe it'd be a good idea when we've
Yep.
got
Yep.
not a departure, but a really great project coming
Yes.
through that we can
Yes.
let councillors know why